Okay, let's try to unpack this. I want you to close your eyes for a second.
Yeah.
Seriously, just for a moment. I want you to picture the concept of wealth.
Okay.
And I don't mean the guy with a nice car down the street. I don't even mean the tech CEO you see on the news. I want you to picture a number that, well, that effectively breaks the calculator.
You're talking about a number the human brain isn't really wired to comprehend.
Exactly. We are talking about a single individual with an estimated net worth north of $2 trillion US.
2 trillion. To give you a quick takeaway right at the top,
Yeah.
that is effectively the GDP of Italy or Brazil,
Or Canada.
the entire country's output.
Concentrated entirely in the hands of one man, who at the time we're talking about is in his early 20s.
Yeah.
It's economic gravity.
It is. And the title attached to this, this celestial bank account isn't CEO or founder. It's the dictator of Waikiki.
So today, we are attempting to make sense of what might be the most bizarre, fascinating, and frankly, reality-bending geopolitical case study of the 21st century. The life and times of Raimondo Cheese.
It is a rabbit hole, a genuine rabbit hole. I've been buried in the stack of sources you sent over. We're talking biographies, leaked diplomatic cables, society pages, dense economic
A
reports.
mountain of paper.
And it reads like someone took a Disney Channel original movie, mixed it with a Tom Clancy techno thriller, and then gave the production an unlimited, and I mean unlimited, budget.
That is the perfect description.
Yeah.
And so our mission for this deep dive is to try and figure out, is this real life? How did a kid who literally went to high school on a cruise ship end up commanding a G9 superpower?
And not just commanding it, but negotiating face-to-face with Putin and Trump and rolling out technologies like life-extending elixirs, things that sound like they're straight out of science fiction.
It's insane.
And I think what we're really going to explore is the ultimate convergence of celebrity culture and hard power. We're going to look at how soft power, being famous, knowing pop stars, how that transmuted almost alchemically into hard power.
Hard power like missile defense systems and trade embargoes.
Exactly. It just challenges every single assumption we have about how states are supposed to form, how they're supposed to function.
So buckle up. We are diving headfirst into the democratic dictatorship. Let's start at the beginning. Part 1, the origin story. Because before he was a trillionaire dictator, he was just a student.
Right, and not for long, really. So Raimondo Cheese, born 1996 in Washington, D.C., pretty standard wealthy upbringing, homeschooled until he was about 10, then attended a private school called Nova Aurelia High.
Okay, so far so normal for a rich kid.
Very normal. But the pivot point, the moment the timeline really splits from what we'd consider reality, is 2011.
And this is the 7 Seas high school era. I have to admit, this part of the source material feels like a fever dream.
It does. For those listening who maybe didn't grow up watching specific teen sitcoms, this was a very exclusive educational experiment. It was a high school program aboard a luxury cruise liner, the SS Tipton.
And the whole idea was this kind of radical experiential learning?
On steroids, yes. The pedagogical theory was basically, why read about the Colosseum in a textbook when you can just dock in Civita Vecchia and go touch the stones yourself?
Which makes sense, if you can afford it.
If you can afford it. And this is where the story gets cinematic almost immediately. He enrolls, he meets the ship's administrator, a Mr. Mosby, and he heads to the juice bar.
And he spills a drink. A classic meet cute.
A classic blunder. He spills a drink on a classmate, a girl named Bailey Pickett.
And the sources are very specific about her background. She's from Kettle Corn, Kansas. A farm girl. The total opposite of his D.C. upbringing.
The perfect archetype of the girl next door. And this moment, the spilled drink, is the very first data point in what I think you could call the cheese method of problem solving.
Right, because most teenage boys, what do? They apologize, they get flustered, maybe they offer to pay for the dry cleaning if they've got a generous allowance.
A very generous allowance. Raimondo Cheese, he buys her a new dress, a designer dress, on the spot. But that's just the opening move. That's the gambit.
It's just the appetizer.
Because the sources tell us that as their relationship developed, he felt the need for a grand gesture. And I think we really need to pause and analyze the psychology here, because he didn't just buy her flowers or a nice piece of jewelry.
No. He purchased the school.
He bought the boat.
He bought the entire SS Tipton ocean liner from its owner, who happened to be the father of another student, London Tipton. And then he renamed it.
He renamed it the Princess Bailey.
Can we just sit with that for a second? The
Yeah.
sheer mind-breaking audacity of it.
Stop and think about what that signals. At 16 years old, he viewed the world not as a fixed environment that he existed within, but as a malleable collection of assets. If the setting of his high school romance didn't belong to him, he didn't just accept that. He acquired it.
It's a thing. It's the ultimate power move. I like you, so I bought the building we're currently standing in, and I named it after you.
It's a precursor to how he treats the nation of Waikiki later on. It's what you might call the owner mindset, applied to reality itself. He creates a reality distortion field around himself.
A distortion field powered by a $1 trillion trust fund.
Precisely. And this ship, the newly christened Princess Bailey, it becomes their personal classroom. It takes them everywhere. New York, Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Rome.
But looking at the itinerary and some of those diplomatic cables you mentioned, this wasn't just a high school field trip, was it?
Not at all. This is where the story shifts from teen romance to what you can only describe as geopolitical grooming. It's a finishing school for a future head of state.
For instance.
In New Delhi, they didn't just see the Taj Mahal. They had a private meeting with the prime minister. In 2012, they're not just tourists at the Waikiki Olympics, they're in the VIP box at the opening ceremony.
So while other kids are struggling with Algebra II,
He's learning Statecraft 101. He was being socialized on the world stage, blending this very public teenage romance with high-level diplomatic access. It's an education no university could ever offer.
so by the time he graduates high school in 2012 alongside Bailey, and the sources mentioned Zach Martin, Marcus Little, London Tipton are all in this class,
Yeah.
he has more diplomatic flight hours than most career ambassadors.
Without a doubt. Which
Sure.
brings us to university. Now, he graduates, but he doesn't go to Harvard. He doesn't go to Oxford with Sorbonne,
He goes to Waikiki Economics University.
which is, in itself, a huge power move. It signals, I don't need the validation of your ancient Western institutions. We build our own prestige here.
And the student body. I mean, I was looking at this class list from the source files, and it's just insane. It reads like a who's who of the next generation of the global elite.
It's an aggregation of elite heirs. You have Vanessa Hudgens, Willow Smith, Rory Gates, Bill Gates' son.
It's a networking event disguised as a university.
But the curriculum is what's truly fascinating. This wasn't just Econ 101 and macroeconomics. It was taught in part by his own father, Cheese Young, who was the Chancellor of Waikiki at the time,
Of course he was.
and by his older sister, Jessica Walker, who was already a titan in international banking.
So it's not a school. It's a family business meeting disguised as a university degree.
Precisely. They weren't just teaching him economic theory from a textbook. They were teaching him governance. They were walking him through the actual management of Waikiki's sovereign wealth fund.
They were handing him the keys to the kingdom, one lecture at a time.
It explains why his economic policies later on are so ruthlessly specific and effective. She wasn't trained in abstract theory. He was trained in a closed loop of his family's own financial ideology.
And while all this is happening, while he's studying, he's also building a house. Or, well, I should say his parents are building him a house for his 16th birthday.
To call it a house is, frankly, an insult to architecture.
It's the palace.
Completed in 2014 in the capital, Nova Aurelia. The valuation, and this is a conservative estimate from the financial reports, is $80 billion.
80 billion with a B. For context, the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, cost about $1.5 billion to build. What on earth makes a private residence cost $80 billion?
Well, the land value is a big chunk of it. The estate is 1,600 hectares of prime real estate, valued at around $30 billion.
So that still leaves $50 billion for the structure itself.
And that's where the technology and the art come in. The sources describe a level of smart luxury that borders on telepathy. The walls are covered in digital screens that change the art based on a visitor's known preferences or, allegedly, their mood, tracked by biometric sensors.
That's unsettling.
The temperature and music in a room micro-adjust to your personal biometrics as you walk through it, but then there are the hard assets, as you called them.
Yeah, I read about this. Not just digital art. We're talking genuine, physical Da Vinci and Monet paintings just hanging on the walls.
And a literal one-to-one scale replica of the Waikiki Parliament Hall.
Okay, see, that's the part that gets me. That's the part that feels like a Bond villain move. Why do you need a perfect replica of your nation's parliament in your house?
Practice. It's the same reason a concert pianist has a Steinway at home or an athlete has a practice court. He can stage mock debates, he can run simulations, he can practice the theater of power before he ever has to step onto the real stage.
So it's a political simulator.
It shows a level of dedication or, obsession with the mechanics of governance that goes way beyond just being a rich kid who expects to inherit the throne. He was training for it.
And then, just to remind you, he's still a teenager, there's also an underwater music system in the main swimming pool and a 5-slide private aqua park.
And you can't forget an underground, nuclear-proof military command center.
Right. Can't forget the bunker. Always have a bunker.
But that command center is crucial. It's not a footnote. It reminds us that this isn't just a playboy's mansion. It's a fortress. It's a secondary seat of government. It has a permanent staff of 200, including 20 personal chefs.
It's a self-contained ecosystem of authority.
It effectively makes the statement, the state is wherever I happen to be, and that sets the stage perfectly for what happens in 2015.
This is when things stop being just about, extreme wealth and education, and they start getting overtly political. We have to talk about the democratic dictatorship.
Yes. This is the major constitutional reform introduced by his father, Cheese Young.
Now, let's stop right there. The phrase democratic dictatorship. To any Western listener, that sounds like a complete oxymoron. It's like saying dry water or a silent scream. What does that actually mean in practice?
It's a fascinating, if deeply paradoxical, framework. In political science terms, you'd call it a hybrid regime. At the very top, you have the dictator who holds centralized, absolute executive power. The final word on everything.
Okay, so that's the dictatorship part. Where does the democratic part come in?
It comes from the Senate. But here's the twist. The Senate is appointed
Appointed by who?
by the dictator.
So it's not democratic at all then?
Not in the sense of one person, one vote, no. But the argument they make, the justification in their constitutional documents, is that the Senate represents the people culturally, even if it doesn't represent them electorally.
What does that even mean?
It means the Senate is an advisory body. It can propose and vote on legislation, but everyone serves at the pleasure of the dictator. He can appoint or dismiss anyone at any time for any reason.
And when we look at who he appointed to this first Senate in 2015, that cultural representation argument actually starts to make a weird, twisted kind of sense.
It does, because
Yeah.
he didn't appoint crusty old lawyers and retired general.
No, he appointed the Disney Channel roster.
Literally. You have Raimondo himself, his sisters Angelina and Jennifer, his girlfriend Bailey Pickett, but then the list gets surreal. Selena Gomez, Taylor Lautner, Tyler Posey from Teen Wolf.
I really need you to help me understand the political science logic here. Why is the guy who played Jacob the werewolf in Twilight voting on infrastructure bills and foreign trade agreements?
It's a strategy that I've started calling weaponized celebrity. Think about it. In the 21st century, what is the single most valuable currency in the world? It's not gold. It's not oil.
It's attention.
It's attention. It's influence. By staffing your government with figures who command the attention of hundreds of millions of young people globally, you instantly legitimize your regime to an entire generation.
So when the Senate of Waikiki passes a new environmental law, it's not just a dry press release that nobody reads.
No, it's an Instagram story from Selena Gomez that gets 200 million views in an hour. It merges the machinery of state power with the dynamics of fan culture.
These people aren't just senators. They're brand ambassadors for the nation itself.
Exactly. It makes the government feel accessible, cool, and modern. And it very effectively distracts from the dictatorship part of the title by dazzling you with the democratic celebrity aspect.
And the sources are clear. They weren't just sitting around taking selfies for the gram. This celebrity Senate was incredibly active from day one.
Very active. One of their first major initiatives was the New Cairo Project, a massive investment plan to build a new, unified African capital.
That's a huge foreign policy move.
A statement of intent, and then they pushed for Waikiki to join the G8, and they succeeded. They literally turned the G8 into the G9 overnight.
Which is a monumental deal. That puts them at the main table with the U.S., U.K., Germany, Japan, the old world powers.
And they had the economic and, as we'll see, military might to back it up. They weren't asking for a seat, they were taking it. They also signed the Transatlantic Trade Agreement. These are massive geopolitical moves being ratified by teenage heartthrobs.
It completely blurs the line between being a citizen of a country and being a fan of its rulers.
And it all builds to this one moment, the climax, July 7, 2017. the handover.
Cheese Young, his father, steps down.
He does. And Raimondo Cheese is sworn in as the new dictator of Waikiki. He stands before his celebrity senate and vows to protect the constitution his father created for him. At 21 years old, he becomes the absolute ruler of a global superpower.
It's an astonishing consolidation of power. And just as his political power solidifies, his personal life goes through this massive, very public shift. We have to talk about the Relena era.
This was the moment the celebrity aspect of Waikiki, which was already at a 10, went completely supernova.
So let's set the stage. Raimondo and Selena Gomez, they knew each other for years before this, right?
Yes, the sources say they met back in 2014. They were both cast in The Matrix 4.
Which is just another one of those bizarre details.
It is. The biography claims there was an instant intellectual connection, a meeting of minds. Selena was apparently interested, but Raimondo was in this very public, long-term relationship with Bailey Pickett, so they remained close friends, intellectual partners.
But then comes the fateful trip to Thailand in early 2017.
March 2017, just a few months before he becomes dictator. Raimondo and Selena go to Thailand together. Bailey is conspicuously absent from the trip.
The paparazzi photos from that trip were everywhere.
They were, and when they return, two official announcements are made almost simultaneously. First, Raimondo and Bailey have split up. The palace press release stresses it was amicable. And second, Selena has split from her partner at the time, Greg Sulkin.
The timing is convenient.
Very. And almost immediately, Relena, as the tabloids dub them, becomes official.
And again, we see the cheese method. In Waikiki, the personal is always political. Selena doesn't just become the girlfriend, she ascends.
She gets a promotion, a big one.
She goes from being a senator to being appointed consul of Waikiki.
Alongside Jessica Walker. The two of them are put in charge of Waikiki's entire foreign affairs portfolio.
So she's basically the Secretary of State.
In essence, yes. And then it gets even more dramatic.
No.
On October 16th, 2017, there is an official ceremony. She is crowned.
Crown, you mean like with an actual crown?
Yeah.
A tiara?
A full state ceremony. A coronation. The sources list, the guest list, the Dalai Lama was there. The Spanish royal family was in attendance. She wore a custom gown by Maison Cheese Couture, the family's own fashion house.
So she's not just a consul anymore. She's Princess Selena of Waikiki.
It was a powerful statement to the world. She is not just a pop star who is dating the leader. She is royalty. She is a co-ruler.
And they immediately started operating as this diplomatic power couple, the ultimate power couple.
Absolutely. Their travel itinerary is astounding. They fly to Russia to meet with Vladimir Putin to discuss the ongoing crisis in Syria. They travel to the U.S., they meet with the Obamas privately, and then they meet with President Trump in the Oval Office.
Can you imagine being in those meetings?
They represented a totally new kind of power, a fusion of hard political negotiation and this irresistible pop culture allure. They could negotiate a trade treaty in the morning and grace the cover of Vogue in the afternoon. It gave Waikiki a level of global visibility and, frankly, cool factor that no other nation on Earth could possibly match.
But visibility is one thing. Real power, G9 power, requires muscle. It requires money, and it requires technology. And this is where the story goes from a political thriller into straight-up science fiction.
It does. You don't get a seat at the G9 table just because you have famous friends and a great Instagram feed. The economy of Waikiki seems to be built on achieving technological singularity before anyone else.
Let's start with the most fantastical claim, the life extension.
Yes. Intermedic, one of Waikiki's state-owned corporations. In 2015, they announced a breakthrough. They called it a life-extending elixir.
An elixir? I mean, the word itself sounds like it's from a fantasy novel.
It does, but they treated it with absolute medical and scientific seriousness. They published papers, they held conferences, and they ran clinical trials with some very high-profile subjects.
The sources mentioned George Clooney and Oprah Winfrey were in the first trial group.
Of course they were. You need unimpeachable, beloved figures to sell the concept to the world.
And then there's a fact in one of the economic reports that it floored me. The auction for the first commercially available dose.
The first full 100-year rejuvenation treatment. Bill Gates won the auction.
Bill Gates bought an extra century of life from Raimondo cheese. Stop and think about the geopolitical implications of that.
It's world-changing. It changes the fundamentals of capitalism, of power, of everything. If the ultra-wealthy can literally buy more time on Earth, they can compound their wealth and influence indefinitely.
And it makes Waikiki the single most important nation on the planet.
Because they hold the keys to immortality. It forces every billionaire, every CEO, every world leader to stay on very good terms with Raimondo cheese. You don't want to get cut off from the supply.
But it's not just soft power like medicine. It's also the hardest of hard power, the military. We saw mentions of something called Skynet.
Yes, a very bold naming choice given the Terminator franchise.
You'd think their PR department, which is clearly top-notch, might have flagged that one.
Perhaps it was intentional, a statement of confidence. But the capabilities described in the defense briefs are terrifyingly impressive. They built something called the TBMDS.
The Transborder Missile Defense System.
And the sources claim it can intercept intercontinental ballistic missiles anywhere on Earth. Not just missiles fired at Waikiki. Anywhere.
So it's not a shield for them. It's a global shield that they control.
Which means they can, in theory, neutralize the nuclear deterrent of any other nation on the planet. They can turn off America's nukes, or Russia's, or China's.
That is why they are a G9 nation.
That's why. They aren't just rich. They are, for all intents and purposes, untouchable. And that's before you even get into their reported hypersonic weapons and advanced laser defense systems.
And they're looking beyond Earth, too. The Waikiki Space Agency, or WSA.
In 2018, Raimondo and Selena didn't just, fund a space launch from a control room. They went.
The Columbus shuttle mission.
It took them to the Waikiki space station, which was already in orbit, and they spent 2 weeks up there.
Just a casual couple's getaway to low Earth orbit. As you do.
And it was a huge global media event. It made space exploration look glamorous and cool again. And now they're building what the documents call interstellar-class shuttles. The first one, the Andromeda, is apparently equipped with ion engines and is being prepped for a manned mission to Mars.
They're positioning Waikiki as the gatekeeper to the solar system.
The new frontier. And the infrastructure projects back on the ground are just as ambitious. I saw plans for Nova Roma.
Rebuilding ancient Roman monuments with modern technology.
Yes, and the Florida Waikiki Tunnel.
A tunnel under the ocean, connecting an island nation to Miami.
With maglev trains for passengers and freight and separate underwater highways for autonomous vehicles, the plans even show a spur connecting to Havana, Cuba.
The sheer scale of that, it makes the channel between the UK and France look like a garden path.
But again, when you have a multi-trillion-dollar sovereign wealth fund and a dictator with absolute authority, engineering challenges just become logistical issues to be solved. The question is never, can we? It's when do we start?
So let's talk about how this Waikiki First doctrine, backed by all this sci-fi tech, actually plays out on the world stage. Because Raimondo Cheese seems to be the only person on Earth who could be best friends with Donald Trump and maintain strategic ties with pretty much everyone else.
The Trump connection is very strong in the sources, you're right. Donald Trump visited Waikiki as president. He stayed at the Hotel President.
And of course they played golf.
They played golf. The Society pages report that Raimondo won by 2 strokes.
Of course he did. I'm sensing a pattern.
But the political alignment there is interesting. The analysis in the diplomatic cables suggests Raimondo saw Trump and later supported figures like Ron DeSantis as ideological allies. Not in a social sense, but in terms of pro-business, low-regulation, nationalist governance.
But then Joe Biden wins the presidency in 2020. How did that shift things?
The sources say relations cooled, naturally. They became more formal, more strategic. But they couldn't be severed. Waikiki is just too powerful to ignore. You can't ghost a country that controls the global missile defense grid and the only market for life extension.
They have too much leverage.
All the leverage. And look at how they operate in the rest of the world, in Africa, for instance.
The new Cairo project and huge reforestation efforts.
It's massive investment. It's building influence through infrastructure and aid. It's a form of soft power colonization, essentially. We will build your future, and in return, you will be our ally.
And then the big geopolitical test of this era, the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
This was a masterclass in walking a diplomatic tightrope. Publicly, Waikiki condemned the invasion in the strongest terms. They called it a gross violation of international law. Princess Selena went to the UN and gave this incredibly powerful speech urging peace.
But there's always a but with Waikiki, isn't there?
There is, because economically they looked out for number one. They didn't join the Western sanctions regime. Instead, they lifted their own oil export caps to stabilize global prices. They bought 350 tons of gold to shore up their reserves.
Hedging their bets.
They strengthened their own currency, the Waikiki Universal Dollar, to fight domestic inflation by making imports cheaper. They didn't sanction themselves into a recession. They maintained their own stability above all else.
It sounds a lot like the strategy of the non-aligned movement from the Cold War, but supercharged with trillions of dollars.
That's a perfect description. It's mercenary neutrality. And you see that same ideological thread in their relationship with Argentina's president, Javier Milei.
A radical libertarian.
Which makes perfect sense if you think about it. Milei is a free market absolutist. Raimondo is a product of Waikiki Economics University, which teaches a similar philosophy. They see each other as ideological cousins, fighting against global bureaucracy and socialist tendencies.
And all the while, their economy seems to be completely bulletproof. I saw a figure of 11% GDP growth in 2021.
The post-COVID boom. And we have to remember, Waikiki had near zero COVID cases.
Wow.
Because they used extreme digital tracking and shut their borders instantly. And this brings us right back to the dictator part of the title. They have total control.
They do. They closed the borders, they tracked every single citizen's movements and contacts digitally, and they completely avoided the pandemic that crippled the rest of the world.
Efficient, yes, absolutely terrifying from a civil liberty standpoint, without a doubt. But in Waikiki, the citizens seem to have accepted the trade-off. You give up all your privacy, and in exchange you get 11% growth and no COVID, and for many that's a deal they're willing to make.
Before we wrap up, we have to look at the inner circle one more time. Because it's not just Raimondo and Selena running the show. The family dynamics are just as fascinating as the geopolitics.
The sisters, Angelina and Jennifer, they are immense power players in their own right. They aren't just socialites with Senate seats. They are business tycoons who own massive chunks of the global economy.
The source material says Jennifer's holding company owns Louis Vuitton and Cartier.
And Angelina's owns Verizon.
So the Cheese family directly controls the government of a G9 nation, the world's most valuable luxury brands, and one of America's largest telecommunications grids.
It's a completely closed loop of wealth and power. There's no separation. And the gifts they reportedly give each other for birthdays are just staggering. Here, have an ocean liner. Oh, thanks. Here's a private island in the Caribbean. I saw you liked that car, so I bought you a custom-built Ferrari.
It just reinforces that reality distortion field we talked about.
Hmm.
And the friends. London Tipton, who started this whole story as the heiress to the ship Raimondo bought, she now works as his personal assistant.
His personal assistant. And in 2018, Forbes ranked her as the 24th most powerful person in the world.
The assistant is the 24th most powerful person on the planet.
It shows you the proximity to power that Cheese commands. And then there's the social life, the regular game nights at the palace.
This was my favorite detail. They have board game nights with the cast of Marvel's agents of SHIELD, Chloe Bennett, Clark Gregg. They just come over to the palace and play Catan.
It humanizes them, but it also reinforces that completely surreal quality of this regime where the line between a TV show and reality, between governance and entertainment, has been totally erased.
So let's try to zoom out here. We have a world where a 20-something dictator, backed by a senate of Disney stars and sci-fi technology, rules a G9 nation. He mediates between global superpowers, and he spends his weekends on a private space station with a pop star princess.
It is the ultimate logical conclusion of every major trend of the 21st century. Wealth concentration, celebrity worship, technological acceleration, and the slow, steady erosion of traditional democratic norms. Raimondo Cheese isn't just a person in this story. He's a symbol of what happens when you turn all of those dials up to 11.
And it leaves us with a massive and kind of uncomfortable question. Is this just a fluke? Is this a weird historical anomaly in this particular timeline we're examining? Or is this model, this corporate monarchy, this fusion of brand and state, is this actually the future of governance?
It's a deeply provocative thought. Because if a government delivers 11% GDP growth, life-extending medicine, and perfect safety from pandemics, do the citizens really care that their senators are appointed actors? Do they care that it's technically a dictatorship? The case of Waikiki suggests that the answer for a lot of people might be no, and that is something every democracy on Earth should be looking at very, very closely.
That is a thought that is definitely going to keep me up tonight. From the SS Tipton to the throne of Waikiki, it has been an absolutely wild ride. Thanks for helping us unpack it.
It's always a pleasure trying to explore the impossible.
And thank you for listening to this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative.